Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Dr. Dilsora Fozilova, and in today's lecture, we are going to delve into one of the very influential works in sociology called The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life by Erving Goffman. This groundbreaking book introduces us the idea that social life is essentially a series of performances. Goffman uses the metaphor of theater to explain how, in our day to day interactions, we are constantly playing roles, managing impressions, and navigating different social stages. Think about how you present yourself in different situations or contexts, like at your work, at the university, on social media, or some kind of event you're participating, or even in a classroom in a university. Are you the same person in every context? Likely not. According to Goffman, we are all performers in social drama, adjusting our front or public persona to fit the expectations of the audience we are engaging with. Very interesting concept. Goffman explores several key ideas such as front stage and backstage, behaviors, participation. What else? And he talks about presenting ourselves to others versus how we can act when we are in private. He also discusses impression management, the strategies we use to influence how others perceive us. As we explore these ideas today, I want you to think about your own experiences. Have, have you ever found yourself continuously or consciously managing how others see you? What kind of roles do you play in social world? And how do these performances shift based on your environment or context? Goffman's work encourages us to reflect on the complexity of human interaction and how much of our lives are shaped by the perceptions of others. So let's begin to have a discussion on this. And I will share with you my PowerPoint. So that will help us to navigate our conversation like point by point. And then also I also wanted you to have good idea about the book. So at the end of this discussion, I am going through chapter by chapter, telling you what this chapter is about in this the presentation of self in everyday life. Okay, let me share my presentation. All right, let's get started. The presentation of self in everyday life by Erving Goffman. You can see Erving Goffman's picture here, and that's the best one I could find. So, what is the presentation of self in everyday life is about? So, the presentation of self in everyday life, Erving Goffman argues that social interaction is like a theatrical performance. So, for him, we are animals that brought to a social life, and then we are participating in these symbolic interactions through our roles. That we all of us has different roles in different social contexts, and we perform them. And then when we perform them, we also intend to manage impressions that other people give to us. So this is not only playing your role in society, but also being aware of the other, what they want from you. And by playing role in a certain way, you are also trying to manage the impressions of others. We will come to that in a bit. So it is about yourself. It's a self-presentation in everyday life. So what is self? So if we take a look at the definitions of self or think about self, it is body, your emotions, your thoughts, your sensations, your opinions, and everything about you, how you hold yourself in the social space. That is self. It is about you. It is about ontology of self, the experience of self, we care about our experiences. We worry about our body, our emotions, our thoughts, our senses. We are concerned about self, and we sometimes celebrate ourselves. For example, when we look at the mirror, if we like what we see in the mirror, that means we celebrate ourselves. Or sometimes people talk negatively about themselves, and that pulls them down. Their self-image changes. It's about confidence, like how you believe in yourself. It's all about self. So in our world, I think self became a very significant factor in social life. It is about taking selfies. It's about altering selfies. It is about Facebooks and FaceTime and all about face and self. I think studying Erving Goffman's the presentation of self in everyday life is very timely, and it never loses its significance. When it was COVID, when people were wearing masks, I was just keep thinking about Goffman's concept of mask. What is mask? How mask is not just to cover us, it is just shapes our face and shapes who we are and our interaction with other people. It plays certain role in how we are presented in social space, right? At the time, mask became also representation of who you are, your belief systems about COVID or spread of COVID, or it became how you treat others. It became basically like how you protect yourself, if you care about yourself. The mask became a significant factor at that time. Now we're navigating our lives through this social media representation and that FaceTime and Facebooks and all of those. I think this is a very good topic to explore in our class today. So the Erving Goffman takes this dramaturgical approach to explain his ideas through what he thinks about self. So this is not only approach, it's just the framework he creates to see or explain the self in social life. Goffman compares social interaction to the performance on stage, where individuals are actors presenting themselves in the audience. Every person uses strategies to control how they are perceived. So basically, Goffman is saying, whatever you do, you are playing a role. You are at home playing a role of a father or a mother. You're at work playing a role of whoever you are at work. Maybe you're an engineer, maybe you're a doctor, maybe you are a professor. So you are acting on it. You dress what that occupation means to you. For example, the people who are like a policeman or the doctors or the postman, whoever brings the post for us, they have specific uniforms that identifies who they are in their occupation. But other times when we don't have that obvious form of identification about ourselves, we give clues about ourselves and our occupation. For example, we come across as a serious person with suits and ties and carrying the certain suitcases that just gives clues about who we are, right? Or we are delivery men and we have this stuff on our hands and we are dressed accordingly. Or you can think of all of those. For example, dancers, they have specific kind of clothes to dance. Their job is to entertain people. If they don't have that, they can give you clues about they are the dancers with their moves, with their like how they are performing during the music, or it's different kinds of ways we express ourselves and show people who we are actually. So in his approach, Goffman is very convinced that everyone in this social world play a certain role. The certain roles. They are in different contexts, in different roles, and they continually keep these multiple roles in multiple situations. He talks about a front stage and backstage. For him, front stage is when you go to work, when you go for an interview, you're going to present yourself in the favorable light. You are trying to talk the way to convince people that you can hold that job. Or you're on social media, you are taking the best moments of your life and putting out there to show people. Front stage is about showing to others who you are, convincing them in whatever role you're going to play. If you are trying to be, let's say, a funny person or stand-up comedian, you say things to make people laugh. That is your role in that context. If you want to come across a serious person, that established person, they probably talk less. And then by doing so, they establish this space around them that they show people that you cannot really come close that easily. I have this space for myself and I want to keep it. So by presenting yourself in different kind of stages, you are identifying your front stage, what you can see. For example, some of the presidents, when they come out, they will show their space and then they talk the way they do. And I'm pretty sure that when they're at home, when they're laying on your couch or talking to their children, they are not the same person. So people present a polished version of themselves in the front stage. It's a public life. As soon as you walked out of your house, it's a front stage that you are by the way you dress, by the way you hold yourself, by the way you do your hair, by the way you do everything, by the way you talk to people. You are communicating, continually communicating who you are, and you're negotiating who you are with other people. But the backstage is perhaps that before you enter to that interview room, you're going to review some of your points, what you want to say. Maybe you will look at the mirror and that you will fix yourself and try to calm your nerves and try to get ready for that interview. That is your backstage. So that's your backstage is basically your private life. The front stage is where people manage impressions by dressing nicely and coming out and talking to people and telling them what they want to hear. So in your best of your knowledge, that is just kind of like you are controlling or managing the impressions towards yourself or who you are, your professionalism, your knowledge and ability to hold this position, for example, if you're in the interviews. While the backstage is where you prepare and relax. And in this, if you look at this picture, I just tried to bring two similar situations. Let's say David is a manager in a company and he holds this position. When he's going, he takes shower, shaves, and dresses nicely. When he gets there, he shows the best behavior, says hello to people, smiles, or sometimes firmly tells people what to do. And he works on the serious projects, and he applies himself to his work. He's respectful. He's doing everything to gain this or manipulate, control this, the impression, right? And when he's at home, he's tired. He's like, as soon as he walks from the door, he's like, I can't take it anymore. All day he was just running around, getting things done. And maybe there is like he needed to talk with difficult customers, or he had to deal with somebody being always late to work, and whatever the situation can be. And now, as soon as he gets home, throws stuff, probably doesn't care about where his socks. Maybe in this picture here, he didn't even take the shoes off, and then throwing himself on the couch and sleeping. So that's his backstage. He does not care about managing impressions there. He does not care about people viewing him. He does not care about polishing himself in the backstage. So that is for Goffman difference between backstage and front stage. Basically, in the backstage, you prepare yourself to present in the black stage. I can't talk today. In the front stage. It's similar to like before the show begins, you are preparing yourself in the backstage, putting makeup on, preparing for the role you're going to play. If you are clown in this show, so you're putting all this paints on your face, dressing this white and red, you have the hat, you're preparing yourself to go out and make people laugh or scare them or whatever you want to do. So you're preparing yourself in the backstage to come out and perform it so well. People have now all of a sudden people feel that you are not this person who you were, and now you're this clown. They just get into your role you're playing if you play it well, and they believe in you. If you don't play it well, they don't believe in you. So that means you're not a successful player in that stage. So your backstage prepares you to perform in the front stage, and how you perform in the front stage is very, very important to manage impressions. So impression management. So you deal with different social contexts in everyday life. When you go to work, you want to come across professional, put together, you know what you're doing, you love your job. In best case, that you have the big smile, look at people, make yourself like approachable, perhaps, if that's kind of job you work in, and that is your front stage. And by doing so, you can manage impressions. In other case, for example, you're visiting your old grandma in a hospital. So your role here is caring grandson. And in this picture, what you do is you will come and hold your grandma's hand, give the impression of you care, and tell her that she will get better very soon. She looks good. Whatever the role you're playing there, you need to perform well to make your grandma feel good and feel good about you, that you are a caring grandson. You created time to come and see her. You're holding her hands. That's that you are managing grandma's impression about you. If you're, for example, going for a date, now you may want to come across as loving person, gentleman, opening the door for your partner or girlfriend or whoever, your wife. Now your job changes from being caring to loving to professional. Or if you are going to work out, your role there is you want to create impression of like you work out, you are strong, you are determined, you create time for your well-being, and you do. So that is way of you control impressions or manage impressions. Individuals use impression management to influence others' perceptions to them. In case, for example, you are going to, if your role is coming across as tough, you can carry out certain projects or missions in, let's say, security services or wherever, like in the police or in that kind of positions. You don't want to come across like you're sensitive, you are caring, you're loving. Perhaps you're perhaps your job is to impress people that you're tough, you're strong, you are bright, you are fast, you can do things that maybe the other person cannot do in that very tight time. So there is like you want to give that impression in that kind of situations. So our how we perform our role changes based on what's expected from us. By the way we hold ourselves or perform our roles, we manage impressions about our roles. So we carefully choose our behavior, appearances, and setting to create desired image for what's expected from us. So then role performance. This is another the very important part of Goffman's writing. He talks about how people play different roles in different, depending on the social context. For example, we already talked about at work, home, or with friends. With friends, you may want to come across funny and social and approachable, and even in a sense that you make that gathering alive. So you do different things, you're funny. Maybe you are not really concerned about being right or being impressing people with your good behavior, like you're calm, or you are professional. Now you're showing the funny part of you. You're showing that you're enjoying yourself, you're laughing, you are dancing perhaps. Maybe in the heat of the party, you're jumping on the table and then dancing on the table. So who knows? So whatever is, good in that context, you will be playing that role. And these roles require different behaviors and performances. Sometimes Goffman talks about that people, when they are, for example, going through certain difficult situations, like somebody's suffering from illnesses, or somebody's depressed because of losing job. Perhaps somebody is going through a bad, harsh breakup. In that situations, Goffman says the performing different roles in different situations will become hard because you are not 100% yourself. You play roles better when you are feeling good. You are in a way that you are healthy, and you are prepared to play different roles in different stages. If you are not, if you're going through depression or breakup or health issues, that means you cannot prepare yourself in this role, and then you come across as who actually are at the moment. You're sick, you don't want to laugh, you don't want to involve. Sometimes perhaps you avoid different stages, and perhaps you stay home to avoid this stages because you're not yourself. So role performance is so important part of social life that as soon as you incapable of playing your role, you want to stay away from social life. It's just so important to be able to play our roles. And Goffman talks about multiple identities or multiple selves. that we are not really a same person in different situations. In some situations, we have to do the things that our backstage selves, perhaps the contradictory to what role we are performing out there. For example, a teenager stays in the class and just performs the role of a good student, and as soon as he goes out with his buddies, then he can start pushing or playing, being loud and screaming and kicking or whatever it is, right? The role changes in a different social context, and then he comes home where mom and dad is there, and let's say he is a little bit of very cautious of how he presents himself beside grandma and grandpa. Then he will become a loving brother or good son, and sits there and talks with them. And then perhaps he goes for a date at night, and then he will become another person, like a gentleman, like a caring person. So one person can play multiple roles, and then shows that some of them is contradictory. One of them is calm, another one is kicking and bullying, or let's say like being loud. So we every day in our everyday lives in present different or multiple selves in a social life. Also, Goffman talks about how we go through the stages of learning how to perform ourselves. When we are a kid, let's say the child is being cared by a mother from the young age, and then the child starts to learn how to use this different kinds of masks in social contexts and perform different roles based on where the child is. And from the young age, the child starts to learn how to perform roles in social contexts. And as the child grows up, they will accept certain roles, and some of the roles probably fall behind. As a child, they were a different kind of person, for example. And then as they grow up, they accept different roles. They can become, for example, a student, and then a partner, a father, and grandpa, and all of those, or worker, or let's say, if somebody is a lawyer, or somebody works in a courtroom, they present, depends on what the expectations are in that context. If we cannot present ourselves in that context, that means that we are not doing our roles well. So we, in everyday life, we are animating the socially constructed self depending on the context and depending on what's expected from us. So teams and cooperation is another part. Goffman talks about how individuals cooperate with others, like their peers, their classmates, their co-workers, their, for example, women, like they have certain groups, women's groups, to maintain a coherent and consistent performance, supporting each other's roles and managing impressions collectively. For example, when I go to class at the university, so the whole bunch of people, maybe 30 or 40 students are in class, they are playing their roles well to perform a collective identity. For example, when I ask a question about, let's say, about culture or society, they raise their hands, and then when I ask them, they can answer, and the next person can kind of feel kind of like add to the argument or disagree. By doing so, they kind of trying to trying to create this collective identity that one of them can talk, others are listening. When the person finishes talking, the other person can add to that argument or conversation to continue this collaboration in class. This is the sort of like how we do. For example, if we are having a party, the birthday party, we are initiating certain kind of like a let's do that kind of moment, and then the others will join us. They try to create this collective identity or collective selves to perform roles collectively that brings people together, brings the behaviors together. Like if this party is about being happy, now everybody's smiling and having good time, doing certain things to make each other feel good. Or, for example, working together in certain projects. In my classes, usually I create groups from students, 5-6 groups, and I will give them some episode or some task so they can work together and then present in class. So what does that do to the group is they learn how to perform together, and then when they come out in this short time, they manage to collaborate or cooperate, and when they come out, the impression management is higher. Like they try to do what they need to do to get that impression. So teamwork or collaborating in society is one of the very important focuses of Goffman's work. However, there are different kinds of participation. Goffman talks about, for example, focused versus unfocused participation. In focused participation, let's think about classroom. Like we have this focused conversation. We want to learn about social structures today. Our focus is that any other kind of conversation in class, for example, takes away from the focus. Therefore, it is not very effective time, right? Or in the courtroom, probably like you cannot even talk about anything else but that case. If you do, maybe it's even unlawful, right? So that is the example of focused conversation or focused participation, or especially if the bunch of doctors engaging in surgery, nobody can do anything else, any other kind of even work related stuff when they're engaging in this surgery. Their conversation, how they act, what they do, is basically for this terms and the what it says, that standards of that social field or standards of that context. Nobody can do anything but focus on that surgery. Unfocused participation, that can be like we are in the bus and then there is no certain kind of focus. We can have all kinds of conversations about politics, religion. We can talk about the weather, and or somebody can say like, oh, I love your coat, and then the conversation starts about coat, right? Or a child on with her mom traveling, and then all of a sudden that boy or a girl is a cute thing. Everybody starts to smile to that baby and then talk to a baby. So that is unfocused participation. Even if people are strangers, that doesn't really matter, which goes to Goffman's next idea about ratified and unratified participation. If, for example, two people are having conversation about work, and the third person can come and join the conversation, which the third person have business joining in that conversation, that means that third person is unratified participant. For example, I am talking to you about Goffman today, and then you are in class. I'm talking about Goffman, and one of my coworkers comes and starts to talk about if I'm going to go for a next day's meeting. So that is unratified participant. It was about you and I talking about Goffman, and the third person coming and just adding or entering to the conversation, or even if that person wants to talk about Goffman, we didn't mean to have her in our class. So that is unratified participation. A ratified participation is you and I talking about Goffman. So ratified conversation is, it's just with intention, two people having conversation. Unratified conversations is there is no need for identifying these people. That people can be anybody. That is unratified participation. And Goffman also talks about one of the very important points. Even in our time, it became very obviously concerning, that is misrepresentation and deception. We can see all different kinds of misrepresentations and deception in our society. And you can ask, like, isn't that playing a certain role? Is misrepresentation of a self? No, according to Goffman, that's your role. Like, however you are putting your best self out there on the Facebook, or you're performing your role at work or at home, that is your role. That's your mask. You have them. Misrepresentation is, it's totally different. Goffman notes that impression management can involve manipulating information, leading to deception or misrepresentation in social interactions. For example, if you are not only showing best side of yourself, trying to give best impression about yourself, you can use a wrong information about self to get accepted to that job. That is misrepresentation or deception. For example, here in the picture, you can see somebody is trying to sell a house, and by misrepresenting some of the information about house, that person can get the sales. And that is called deception. You're not only showing best of you, that as a good salesperson knows what they're talking about and knows everything about this house this person is selling, and showing that, for example, when showing the rooms, different rooms, drawing pictures in the minds of the customer about their good lives in this house would be probably like best way of performing the role of a salesperson. But if the salesperson is hiding some of the information that might could have prevent these people to buy this house, then he is decepting. He's using deception to sell the house. And in today's world, deceptions are everywhere. People try to get information through decepting people. They can try to sell stuff by decepting or misrepresenting certain information. Certainly in social life, when we talk about representation, the misrepresentation is a huge part of it. And we can see it more than we should, or more than we think about misrepresentation of information in social life. How changes affect self. Now we're talking about that social world around us changes how we represent ourselves, changes the self itself. For example, during the traditional or hunting and gathering societies, probably that idea of stage was different, that people were almost like not used to this social life, therefore roles weren't identified, impressions weren't that clarified. However, there was coming across in a certain way to maybe being picked for hunting, or maybe attracting somebody from that social group, that probably there was some sorts of kind of presentation of self. However, though, because social spaces weren't identified, like there was like a no coffee shop or no theaters, or there's no other social contexts, kind of clarified from the how people are living there. Also, the performances were kind of fluid, right? Now, represent the introduction of different kind of societies. For example, let's say, think about Victorian era, right? How women dressed, how women talked, and think about the tea parties and how dances or ballrooms were the huge thing, right? The people were adapted to this different kinds of social contexts to represent themselves differently. And because of the expectations of in that society for the clothing, for the way people talk, education levels, or gender roles, or everything else, people perform based on that expectations. Therefore, we want to see that what's happening in our social lives is the process of socialization, and we are internalizing and externalizing all the time. By internalizing the norms and values in society, we are presenting ourselves in the favorable light for that society. And society can change, and then we have to represent or present ourselves differently in different times, right? In today's world, for example, how my students, what kind of clothing they're wearing, and how they are doing the hair, or how they're talking, how they're presenting themselves, is probably different than boys and girls in 100 years ago, how they performed their roles. And so, according to Goffman, social changes alter the self by transforming the social roles, expectations, and performances individuals must navigate in social life. In his work, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life, Goffman argues that the self is not static, it's fluid, actually, internal identity, but a product of interactions and the social stage on which people perform. When we talk about socialization, we talk about internalization. Like, however you're seeing your social world, you're internalizing the norms in your social world. And when you're walking on the street, coming across from your house, you're externalizing the certain values yourself. The way you dress perhaps influences somebody, the way you talk influences somebody. So you are externalizing your standards, externalizing your who you are, and then other people are internalizing that. So by doing this continually, we are not only changing our presentation in the social context, also we are altering our social context as well, slowly but surely. Thus, the self is fluid, constantly reshaped by the shifting social environments. We are not only changing ourselves, but also changing our environment through externalization. And we have to think about self as something constantly shaped and reshaped through negotiating our performances, negotiating ourselves in different social contexts. So also Goffman talks about negative experience. I love this part. What is negative experience? So negative experience is all of a sudden something happens. People don't know how to act in that situation. People are, I don't know what's going on. What is going on? That when they, for example, there's some type of disorder in a college, for example, and then people don't know what's happening, like everybody's panicking, and some people don't even know what's happening. Maybe that is, somewhere somebody screamed there is something dangerous, or we don't know, maybe all of a sudden the nighttime, when people were having this event, all of a sudden light turned off, and then people don't know what's going on. The first question comes to mind is, what's happening? So when we don't know how to act, how to perform, when we're confused, when we don't know how to interact with people, everybody's panicking, that is negative experience for Goffman. In that situation, we try to avoid negative experience in society. People who are navigating other people to tell them how to play their role are the best people, that the people who perform their role very good. For example, there is something is going on and everybody's yelling, screaming, and people are, somebody maybe fall and got sick, and people are panicking and running around, and then all of a sudden this man walks in. He says, like, you people stay out there, you people, you call 911, you do this, and he just tells everybody what to do. So it takes people out of this negative experience. They could see something was wrong, and they didn't know how to perform their role for a minute. And then this person who understands the situation, understands people are having negative experience with the social setting, that it's the rules are not performed in a way it should be. Now he's taking the control of that situation and making everybody do, like, they're kind of assigning a different role at that moment to take people from this negative experience. Or during the war times, or during the certain social panics, the people who are strong, who can perform well, or who can kind of manipulate other people's, what they can do and cannot do, are the ones that take the people out of negative experience. Sometimes authorities can do that. For example, there is some type of disorganization in the public, in a mall or somewhere. All of a sudden security guards or police comes and makes everybody to do what they say, and all of a sudden everybody knows what to do. So that social setting comes back to how roles can be performed or what can come after. So these people who take control over the situation takes people out of this negative experiences. Or in certain situations, you feel yourself confused. You enter to a situation that you don't understand what to do. For example, you enter to a different religious place, for example, and all of a sudden you see this, a lot of people performing certain kind of rituals or acts, and then you're in the middle of that. You got confused. Now, should you do what you're doing? If you want to do what they're doing, you don't even understand the meaning of what they're doing. And then if you don't do what they're doing, then you are kind of strangely standing in the midst of this context without knowing your role, like you are somebody just entered wrongly. Now, take yourself out of this situation. Either you will leave the room or you will perform whatever they are doing to just get mixed with that crowd. So that is your negative experience, how you change or modify your mindset depending on that context. It shows like how adaptable you are in different kind of situations. Or another case, like you are in a different city, Now, all of a sudden, you don't speak the language, you are in the middle of city, you don't know what to do. Or you have to talk to somebody, nobody understands you. Now you're using body language to make people understand, and that's also your negative experience. So negative experiences happen a lot. And if you are adaptable person in different social contexts, you easily can get out of that negative experience. For some people, it can be tough. And maybe they need somebody else to modify their setting instead of they are adapting to a situation. So, and then question comes that, how about gender, race, class, sexuality? How about this kind of measures in society? Because we face this kind of, the racial identities. We talk about racialized identities, gendered identities, or classes. Every day we interact with them in certain ways. So how Goffman understands that? He does not openly discuss this stuff, but based on the concepts he introduces in this book, you can kind of like think about how would he talk about this. Like gender, for example, people may perform masculine or feminine features based on the expectations of how men and women should behave. For example, in certain situations like ballrooms, for example, women intend to come across as feminine while they are working in the field. Let's think about the field workers now. Their femininity is perhaps not as important. Perhaps they will use their masculine features to perform their role in that situation. In these days, for example, you can see that women are working in construction now. In that place or in that social context, their role as gendered role as feminine woman is not necessary. Now they would like to come across not as as different than their male counterparts. They can perform the similar kinds of jobs, and there is nothing really stopping them. Being feminine is not a choice in this kind of situations. When it comes to race, individuals may adjust their behavior depending on racial stereotypes or the social dynamics of a particular interaction. Recently, I was having a lecture in class about whiteness, and then we talked about what is being white, and in everyday life we use certain words to kind of say like we are not, racist people, and because we interact with different kinds of people, all of a sudden there is like uncomfortable space where white people start to think negatively about their own performances, or they were questioning if they are actually, without knowing, because whiteness is invisible, without knowing, sometimes they perform this racist selves. So that kind of places you can certainly see how race or racialized individuals or people who are have some racist acts can adapt different kind of situations. Class, social class might influence one's performance by shaping behavior, language, dress, and interaction in certain settings. And we see that all the time. Like, for example, from higher class, more wealthy class people, usually arguably, they don't care too much about showing off because they already confidently have their part. And some places, it's a kind of like a kind of counters what Goffman is saying here, that actually sometimes people who does not have it in this days try to show off, like whatever they have, they can have a selfie beside neighbor's car or something like that, right? So class can be performed in certain way or negatively or contrastfully, like the people who have that may not care too much. People don't have certain kind of toys or tools, may want to show themselves as having them. Sexuality, people may present different aspects of their sexuality in different contexts, depending on what is socially acceptable or expected. This happens all the time in some kind of contexts. For example, people are not trying to show their sexuality in other kind of situations. For example, when it comes to LGBTQ community, for example, there are specific concerts, they can perform who they are freely, and different kinds of situations they may not like to show off or show who they are. So that's kind of conversation can be analyzed through Goffman's concepts. So now I'm going to go through with you quickly what this book is about with the chapter by chapter base, so you know exactly what's the conversation about. And the idea was like, you maybe feel like you read the book without reading the book, right? So in the introduction, of course, introductory chapters are my favorite sometimes, because it just gives us the main ideas about every chapter. And that's what Goffman also does in this chapter. He introduces the core idea that social interactions are theatrical performances where individuals manage their behavior to create a specific impression in the minds of others. I apologize for some of the noises in the background. So we are in the social space. So all kinds of things happening. Okay, chapter 1, performances. In this chapter, it's another very important chapter. The Goffman explores how people present themselves in social situations that we talked about, like different stages, different contexts, how we play multiple roles, and focusing on the idea that everyone is constantly performing to influence the perceptions of others. And he talks about that front stage, backstage, and he talked about also sincere and cynical performances. It is very interesting how he conceptualize this social life. I think he does amazing job by, taking everything into consideration. Although like there's always some points you're not agree with, he talks about, for example, front stage and backstage, and just kind of gives us idea about our performances, the expressive equipment. He talks about settings, appearances, manners, and he uses to define the situation and convince the audience of the performed role. That is the stage prepared for you to perform your role. Sincere and cynical performances. Some people believe in the role they are playing that's sincere. Like, for example, somebody is being a caring grandson, for example. They are believing in their performances and they come across sincerely caring about grandma, while others do not feel confident about their roles, but still go along with the performances. They do certain things, but people can pick up from like that person wasn't sincere. They were like saying, I'm sorry for your loss, for example, but they did not come across that they are sorry for your loss. Or somebody is really feeling how down you feeling, and then saying like, oh, I'm very sorry. I just wish I can do something. That's which comes across very sincere, which the same things can be told by other person, it does not come across sincere. That's just kind of, they will say that without believing in their performance. And I don't know, like at this point makes me feel like, really, like, is that, how can we, like, it's just differentiation between them is just kind of harsh reality, but makes you wonder. Chapter 2 is about teams, and this is the ones we talked about, collaboration or cooperation in different settings, how people work as a team in social interactions. People often cooperate to do the mission or to do something. They collaborate to put on performances, particularly when working towards a common goal. I'll talk today. Goffman discusses how team members must trust each other and work in harmony to maintain the performance for the audience. So if the group is well organized, understand one another, performing their role based on the goal, well, then they can achieve more. They can manage the impressions as a collective identity or collective self. The third chapter is about regions and region behavior. Here, Goffman distinguishes between different regions where performances take place. Now, he's introducing these regions that the roles can differentiate from one another. This is where now he talks about front stage and backstage in a more clear sense. He gives a lot of examples. He conceptualizes the backstage and front stage. For him, the social setting where the performances occur and where individuals are conscious of their audience is the front stage. A backstage is a space where individuals can step out their roles. They're not performing anything, they're just being themselves, and then preparing for the future interactions. Somebody needs a 5 minutes before coming out as a groom or bride in the wedding ceremony. They are like taking a brief moment and just kind of trying to be themselves. That is their backstage. They want to stay there for 5 minutes to prepare themselves for the big show, right? Goffman explains how people move between these regions, managing their behavior depending on the situation. Like we said, like the groom is taking a moment before enters to a big ceremony, is just how he is mentally preparing himself to be okay in this unknown space or region. All right, the chapter 4 is about discrepant roles. The chapter focuses on the roles of people who have access to both front and back stages, and how they may disrupt or facilitate performances. And examples: informers, people who may reveal information about the backstage. Shields, he talks about individuals who assist the performance by pretending to be part of the audience, but are actually working with the performers. This is very important. This is actually very important. For example, if you are trying to be somebody at work and somebody knows you from different the different region, let's say from home or from school, or maybe you were in a street gang, let's say, and then they will reveal the information about how you are in the backstage, and that which probably ruins the role you're pretending or trying to play in that situation. However, the other people, those we call informers about your backstage, and the other people seems like they are sitting and watching your performance and how you do. By doing that, they are also helping you to perform that role better. They're just kind of helping out, like taking you from that unknown space, or when you are having negative experience, they are the ones leading you to have a positive experience in social settings. That called Shields by Goffman. Chapter 5 is communication out of character. Goffman explores moment when performers break character, whether intentionally or accidentally. That's just called having a bad day. In other words, like you are performing your role well, all of a sudden something happens, and then that movie comes to mind is that Mrs. What was her name? That he dresses up like a woman and comes and plays the role of a babysitter in his own home. I think it was Mrs. Hellfire, something like that. So that is exactly what Goffman is talking here about communication out of character, or when you're playing certain role, all of a sudden your backstage or different role interrupts your role playing. So these lapses can reveal the backstage to the audience, threatening the integrity of the performance. He also discusses ways individuals try to repair or manage these breaches in communication. Honestly, I would invite you to watch part of that movie. I will try to put a clip from that in your e-learn or the Blackboard. And I think that will give you a better idea about what Goffman is talking in this communication out of character. Chapter 6 is the art of impression and character. He's now talking about impression management. And here Goffman delves deeper into the strategies people use to control the impression they make on other people. Like in everyday life, the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we present ourselves is just kind of the way we control impressions, like being being continually same thing, that being I just forgot the word, just performing your role continually same is very important sometimes. It shows that you are well well prepared for this position. That, in other words, dramatic realization emphasizes certain aspects of the performance to highlight one's role. Idealization, adjusting the performance to meet societal standards or ideals, like your ideal mom, and you try to create that role in certain situations. Your ideal husband, ideal whatever you think, is just kind of like a well accepted or positively viewed by by society, and then you try to get in that role. Misrepresentation also in this chapter, the concealment of certain facts that would undermine the performer's credibility in certain situations, that would put better in here. Goffman explains how individuals use various tactics to maintain control over how they are perceived. So this is what Goffman's the presentation of self in everyday life. It's very interesting, very influential book. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. I hope it gave you an idea about this book, even if you didn't read that. If you get into conversation about Goffman or presentation of self, I really hope you can say meaningful things about how people present themselves in everyday life, how they interact, how they play their roles in societal contexts, and that roles are very fluid. So this was our short lecture. Thank you for sitting and watching this. I will see you in our next lecture. Bye-bye.